Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. CoronaCon 2020. I don't even know what day we're on, but I do know it is Sunday. Hallelujah. So listen, man, it is important in this time to find ourselves in a position where we can help one another, be real with one another, take our talents, our skills, and our missions to an entirely new level. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Dave Anderson. I'm the business bully. I am the creator of CoronaCon, author, speaker, business coach, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to be hosting this hour of an amazing CoronaCon talk with none other than Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr., because he is awesome. If you don't know, he is the president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. He is a minister, community activist, U.S. Air Force veteran, and one of the most influential people in hip hop political life. If you're not familiar with this brother, he is a key architect for 2004 P. Diddy's famous Vote or Die campaign as a run-up to the 2004 presidential election. And he founded the Hip Hop Caucus to make sure that the work continued, because it's not one thing to just have a movement for a minute. You know, you need a movement for a message, and you need a movement for masses. Look at me, all that alliteration. Boy, let me tell you something. So if you're not familiar with the Hip Hop Caucus, it's a nonprofit, nonpartisan, multi-issue organization addressing core issues impacting underserved and vulnerable communities with programs and campaigns that support solution-driven community organizing led by today's young leaders. You can't get mad at that. You know, the work continues. Aside from all of this wonderful things, Reverend Yearwood is also extremely valuable when it comes to the environment and making sure that people understand the importance of climate change. We cannot talk about this enough. In 2018, he helped launch Think 100, which is the coolest show on climate change. So it's a multimedia communications and engagement platform to challenge environmental injustices and share solutions to climate change, including a transition to 100% clean energy for all. This man is nothing short of amazing. And I want to tell y'all, I am honored that he took some time, you know, in this time to come talk to us about what it means to be an archivist. And you're about to find out what that is. So without any further ado, I have to give it up for the one, the only, Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr., ladies and gentlemen. What's up, my brother? How are you?
Man, thank you so much. I got to figure out how to put a CoronaCon check in the mail for that amazing introduction. I appreciate that. Listen, even with the sound, the sound effects, I'm loving it. Thank you so much. And thank you for this. I mean, really, this is, this is really what we have to do. We have to figure out how we can use our cultural expression to shape our political experience. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing right now is critical. And thank you for pulling this together. And we're going to do many more of these. I mean, so I hope people are ready because clearly this is the time when we're not going to be able to go out and connect how we used to, but so we're going to connect this way as well.
Absolutely. So I'm just excited to have this opportunity to talk to you, and I appreciate you giving me the time, and I appreciate you recognizing the platform as something that's vital to what we're trying to do, because there's so many people, and don't get me wrong, this is as a businessman, this is a phenomenal time because everybody's home. But as a human being, as a member of this planet, and as a person that knows how this thing can impact people. My brother's in the hospital right now, right? Luckily, he had an issue and he's in recovery, but I can't be there for him. And there's never been a time where my brother and I, we're the only two we have. If one of us was injured, the other one wasn't there, and so out of instinct, Rev, when the hospital called me, I'm like, Start! And like, no, Mr. Anderson, you can't come down because COVID-19, and I'm like, so it's deeper than just this virus. It's deeper than, the coronavirus. It's about how it's impacting everything, and people need answers. So what's on your heart right now?
Well, I mean, obviously, this right now, I join you in the thoughts that this moment is critical for our communities, particularly communities of color around this country and around this world, who may not have had the infrastructure or the resources to be ready for a pandemic. I think that they were literally In many cases, just trying to get through the week and be good and diligent at that. So this moment, I think, is especially challenging for our communities. And so we need to be extra mindful. This reminds me, this year actually will be the 15th year anniversary of the commemoration of Hurricane Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
And for many of the folks who are watching and listening, I'm originally from Louisiana, the great state of Louisiana, and was born in Shreveport, but many family and friends in New Orleans. And so when Hurricane Katrina hit, it actually was one of the first things that the Hip Hop Caucus was able to kind of respond to. When we saw particularly our communities, poor, vulnerable communities left behind in the richest country in the world, we were able to respond. We waited for like those first couple of days thinking this government would be there. And then when they weren't there, we sprung into action. And that kind of, what I think kind of helps us right now. We should use that kind of mentality, because back then many of us from Louisiana were waiting for FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
And then we realized that we need to create a PEMA, a People's Emergency Management Agency, in which we can make sure that we are okay. So I think that Katrina gives us a kind of a blueprint of how to deal with this moment. Katrina didn't go away. So I think that many folks who are thinking at this moment, like literally when Katrina hit on August 29, 2005, people thought, man, well, by, November, it'll be back to order, we'd be fine. And they realized that literally that devastation and that destruction has us still almost 15 years later trying to get home in many cases. So people should just kind of prepare themselves that this situation is on par with a Hurricane Katrina. And has the same devastation, destruction. So we should kind of prepare ourselves to be, surviving in this moment for the long haul. And I think that, that kind of goes into, for me being in this industry and in the political aspect for so long, what it means for particularly everybody, but in particular those who are watching the artists in the artist community, the celebrities, the poets, whoever, those who are in media, how do we respond in a crisis? How do we use our platform that we have to either build audience, to help save lives? And I think that's what, I would love to talk about the role, what I call the artivist, which is the combination of an artist and an activist kind of put together. But what does an artivist do during a COVID-19 situation?
So, great question. What does an artivist do, in a COVID-19 situation? Because, we see, and don't get me wrong, people need to be entertained and people need to be informed. And it's like, there's something, I think there's a sweet spot, Rev, in between the concerts and the jokes and the gloom and doom of, oh Lord, this is going to kill you. You need a mask, take a paper towel and put some salt and hand sanitizer on it, put it in the microwave, stomp 3 times, and then say, hallelujah. Like, so where should the artivist be in this space, and how do we bridge that gap so that people aren't going into panic mode, but they're also not just la-di-dying and binge watching their way through this situation?
No, that's a great point. So let me actually go back a little bit for those, so kind of give my kind of background, and so how I've been around many artists and where they've been. So when I first got into hip hop politics, I was very fortunate to come in through Dr. Ben Chavis. Folks who may not know, you should look him up. But he was the director of the Million Man March, was the former ED for the NAACP, just a phenomenal advocate for the hip hop community through and through. And he was working with Russell Simmons. This is back around 2002. And they were working against the Rockefeller drug laws. And he called me up to really get engaged, because one of my skill sets is helping to move with the grassroots community. So we came on board, started working with Russell. That was like my first thing to become the political director for Russell Simmons and Hip Hop Summit Action Network. I bring that up because in that process, I would then come across, obviously, Diddy, and then Diddy now would create the Vote or Die campaign. And then me and Jay-Z would create Voice Your Choice. And I say that, and I've kind of used Jay-Z as an example. When Jay-Z came involved at that time, when we were doing Voice Your Choice, it was around, he actually wasn't kind of maybe where Russell was at that time, or where even where Diddy was, as far as the political aspect, but he knew he wanted to get involved. He knew he wanted to use those skill sets to be an artist. We began to run that campaign, which was called Voice Your Choice, and that moved forward. But what happens there is that when the first aspect about being an artivist is that you have to just get involved. And so even no matter where you are, if you're from the trap side or you're from the conscious side, or wherever side you may be on R&B side, whatever side you may be in, or the gospel, it doesn't really matter. The first step to being an artivist is to want to see something change and want to get involved. And so with Jay-Z's situation, clearly he might have been, discussing things like Russell was at the time, but he wanted to use his platform to make a difference. So that was the first step. He wanted to get involved. You just got to see the cries of the people, so to speak, and want to get involved. The second thing is that there are already artists out there who are doing the work. So you don't have to sometimes create this process from scratch. And so, when using Jay-Z again, we worked together. He found an activist who was already doing some of the political civic engagement work, and myself, and then we began to connect. So using his immense platform, but using my background and just, going out there in the streets and fighting the power, we connected, and then that began to move things forward. I use him as an example because since that time, he clearly has been doing things from obviously with the Trayvon Martin Foundation regarding Moving for Black Lives and other things. Now, people can, say that he hasn't done everything perfect. I mean, none of us have done anything perfect as far as activism or being involved. But the key thing is wanting to make a change. The next thing for artists that I think, and for artivists, is that they have to realize that, and since it is Palm Sunday, I'll use some of the spiritual aspects of this process, but you have to realize that the battle is not yours, but the Lord's. And I think that one of the things that you have to recognize that you can't do all this by yourself. And a lot of us begin to get involved and we get a little frustrated and jaded and bitter because we want to just make all the change happen through our platform. And that's impossible. So I think that one of the things there is that we have to realize that how do we then connect ourselves with other people to ensure that we can rise. So what we just did, like for instance, you hit up my dear friend, Antonique Smith, and Antonique Smith connected. And then here we are right now. And this probably won't be the last thing. Then we connect and move things forward. But that's what's important for an artivist, is to begin to connect yourself to other people to build things for the common goal. That leads to the other side of this, being an artivist, is that you can't do things in silos. A lot of times, in this industry, you're kind of pushing your own brand, and you're trying to make your mark, and it's, a little bit of selfishness is there, and you're looking out for yourself and where you fit on the billboard and all those things, and it's ego driven. During a crisis, all that has to go away. And so that's going to be a little hard because you've been using that to become successful. You've been using your ego and your drive and your tenacity and all those things to get ahead. You now got to put that in the suitcase and in the closet for this process, because you can't do things in a silo. If you try to do things in a silo, you will fail. There's no if, there's no ands, there's no buts. You will fail. And then the last thing I'll say around being an artivist, and we can get to the conversation, but is that you can't forget who you are. You don't gotta if you're dealing with climate change, which I work on as well. You don't got to be a scientist working on with the issue of the movement for Black Lives. You don't have to be a social studies major to know what's going on, or gentrification, what's going on in communities. All these are impacts of education, healthcare, whatever it may be. You have to be an expert. What you have to be is yourself, and bring all of you into this process. And so with that, if you bring fun, if you bring joy, bring that. I always say, if it's not fun, you're done. And so bring that. So one of the things I look at my brother D Nice. D Nice did a great thing. When he was, he brought that using his platform, and then using that platform, then he went off and people joined him with voter registration, Michelle Obama's program, and then they connected and they literally registered thousands of people. So again, just be who you are in this moment. And I'd say this is not connected to being an activist, but this is just for us. I think one of the key things here as well is that you have to realize that you have to take care of yourself. A lot of us in this moment weren't really taking care of ourselves as much as we needed to. And, I think that sometimes things happen. Again, we learned this from Katrina, that we weren't as connected as we needed to be. And these moments forces us to connect. I'll end with this story from Katrina, actually. Mama D, Diane French Cole, who actually Jay-Z would shout out in one of his lyrics. She passed away a little while ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, but Mama D was an amazing woman in this movement. And let me just say this to be clear, there is no movement without women. They are critical. And if you want to win a movement, find you some Black women and you will definitely succeed 100%. That's just a sidebar. I ain't trying to start no nothing. I'm just stating some facts to bring that in here to the conversation. But one of the things there that's important, Mama D, when Hurricane Katrina hit, decided to stay in her community on Derjewan Street in the 7th Ward. I bring that up because a lot of us want to escape our community during a crisis. Sometimes you're most needed in your community at these moments. So Mama D stayed home. And when Hurricane Katrina hit, she lived in a neighborhood which was predominantly people of color and predominantly seniors. When Katrina hit and the flood waters rose, the seniors were being washed out of their homes down the street. Mama D and her son would literally go outside with a rope and literally tie the seniors to her tree so they wouldn't be lost in the water. I bring that up. That's a horrific situation, but I bring that up from the standpoint that when things get super ugly and get really, really hard, you still can't forget to be a neighbor. You still can't forget to use love. You still can't forget to go out there and be there, even during the crisis. And so she would continue that spirit all the way through, even when the waters would recede. But I think that we have to have a Mama D type spirit right now that has a spirit where we got to be for our neighbors, no matter, even in life or even in death. We got to be there for our people. We got to be there to make sure that no matter what goes on, how it goes on, that we're there during this crisis. This is not a game. I mean, people are dying even as we're having this CoronaCon. And so it's not a game at all. And it's very, very scary. But I will say this, if we come together, and particularly if we have faith, we can overcome anything.
I definitely feel you on that, man. And you're right. Like, you're a man of God, so you understand this. The Bible says, and all that get an understanding.
Most definitely.
I think that a lot of times, we get into our rut, we get into our routine, we get into our daily lives, and it's, same ish, different day. And we don't think that anything's going to happen. I mean, I remember being on a Marine base when 9/11 happened and the towers came down. I remember I was running CBS Austin when Katrina happened. And the first thing we did was like, we sent in trucks of water, bring supplies these folks needed,
right.
And we were blown away by like people calling Black folks in New Orleans who were born there refugees. Right. I'm like, no, they're American citizens. And, Brownie was doing a heck of a job. So it shows me that in crisis, we're really good at putting things aside and focusing on the moment. But how do we bring more of that, when there's not a crisis, when, the walls aren't coming down or the levees aren't breaking? How do we shift culture so that is our default, or that neighborly feeling that we have, because we can't touch nobody now. Before it was all, oh, we in the phones and the apps and da da da. Now it's like all we want to do is touch people, and we can't. So now folks are starting to get a little softer. How do we shift culture so that becomes more of the norm, where we use platforms to help heal and help bring togetherness? What do you think?
It's a great point. I mean, so I actually expect the art, I've already started to see it, the art and the music to begin to change because of the coronavirus. It'll change because musicians and artists and poets are usually connected differently, and they can hear things and see things. And so I've always said that when the movement is strong, the music is strong. But when the movement is weak, the music is weak. And so, to your point about what can we do to be more neighborly, I mean, I think that this will help us. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a crisis. As a minister, one of the things, and obviously working in the hood, I hate to. I've buried so many of our ministers from gun violence, and done those funerals, but I usually hate that I have to do that funeral before I hear and talk to somebody that says, my life gonna change, man. I'm out the game. And like, man, really, I mean, to be honest, I wish it wouldn't have took this brother or sister being in this casket, for you to change. But on the other hand, if that's what it takes for you to change, for you to have that moment, then use that to help to change you. So let this moment that we're going through now not let us go back to being a place where we're not concerned about our family and our friends. And at this moment, not be a time where we're not connecting to our neighbors that way. So I think that this moment clearly is going to have an impact on all of us for a very, very long time. But hopefully and prayerfully, we can not forget this. I mean, we have a tendency sometimes when things begin to, get better, to want to go right back to where we were. But I'm hopeful that this moment will leave an everlasting impression for us to not to be so quick to not be connected.
In this time, what can people do to help you help others with everything that's going on?
I got a long list here now, so
run it. Listen, I own the network. We got time.
Okay. So I mean, let me say this: we're in a very different time. Mm-hmm. So for the first thing is that it's very important politically that we're all connected. Let me start there. It's important that we are all voting and making sure that we are connected. We don't know. I've always said that either you shape policy or policy will shape you. And so I think that we have to make sure that whatever comes out of this process, that we are shaping policy. And the only way to shape policy is to make sure that we are engaged in the political process. So number one, everybody should be, this is not the time for you not to be registered to vote. Please, you can go to respectmyvote.com and register to vote, or many of our other partners out there who are doing that voting work. Just go on the site, register to vote, and make sure that you're paying attention. So that's one of the first things you can do is, that's low bar. This is the low bar.
Oh no, keep it coming.
So the second thing is that this pandemic has hit during the time of the census. And so that's important for our communities, because a lot of the resources that we're talking about, how they're distributing information, where hospitals go, how everything you're seeing now is critical to literally representation. Mm-hmm. And so, that we can't go back 10 years, back, but we can literally now, as we hit 2020, make sure, and it's become so easy to fill out now. It used to be much harder. You can just go on to the census.gov and just hit the website and just do it like about 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long, but you have to make sure that, your voice is being heard and counted. The next thing, you got to pay attention. I know we have looked at this being the stay woke moment in time, but a lot is happening. If you haven't read this book, this is a great book. She actually wrote it after Katrina, but it applies now, by Naomi Klein. It's called The Shock Doctrine. And the shock Doctrine was a book in which literally there are people who are waiting for a hurricane, a wildfire, a drought, a pandemic to literally benefit themselves. And so we have to pay attention. For instance, on this past Friday, the fossil fuel industry was up there in the president's office trying to make sure that they get bailout money. And so it's like, man, the one people who shouldn't be getting bailout money shouldn't be those who've been polluting our communities. It should be the people first. I mean, it should be a long line before everybody from oil and gas and coal get any money to support themselves. But I just say that we have to pay attention. So, and that's happening a lot. We got to pay attention to things that are happening in our prisons and our jails. Right now, COVID-19 is ravaging our prisons and jail. And so, we got to really pay attention to our behind bars situation. Mental illness right now, we got to pay attention to that. A lot of us, people around have been dealing with that. So, it's the time in which we got to look out for our neighbors and our friends who, have been dealing with that, and family, who have been struggling with certain things or any kind of addictions. You got to really be mindful of them as well. So folks who are going through, who had mental illness or addictions when everything was good or, somewhat good, they now are really struggling because a lot of the safety nets around them are not there. We got to make sure for childcare. There are a lot of folks, this is a really, really tough time for our young mothers who literally have small children, who are literally relying on a system to help them through. And so if we don't figure that out now, it's hard now because of the coronavirus because of the physical distancing, things in place. But we have to literally figure out within our own family and our own structure how we're making sure all those people are there. The bottom line to this is that we got to be there for the most vulnerable in our community. This is the time when you got to kind of just go through your Rolodex from your grandma to your cousin Niecy to your Uncle Lou to whoever. And you got to really think about how are they doing. And then for you, let me just say this for a lot of us, sometimes this is particularly for those who are Black and red and brown communities. We have a tendency to literally not be as vulnerable as we need to be or don't ask for help. If you're struggling, if you're going through a moment, if you feel like, man, you're afraid because, particularly if you're in the industry and, your money was going to come because you were going to do some work in March and you ain't doing no work in March. And now it's April and April 1st was rent day. You have to really, these are times when you have to really be this, I don't want to say be humble, because not about being humble, but just being open to figuring out, what you need to do. The Bible says you have not because you ask not. And so I think that you have to begin to be comfortable asking and looking and be aggressive. You have to survive. Let me say that you have to survive. This is a situation where you have to look out to make sure that what can I do to ensure that I survive and make it. And if that means you have to ask for help, do it. It's okay. It's nothing wrong with that. Ask for help. And sometimes the help may not come. And that's when you got to pray and just be like, because I do know this is, I don't know I'm not trying to do no Palm Sunday message, but I do know this, that that it is a situation when all else comes, I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor seed begging for bread. So I definitely know that you have to be in a position where if you have to hold on to your faith and tie a knot in your belt of faith and tie it tight, that you have to just know that it's going to be okay. That, that the storms will come. I'm telling you, I've been around from Katrina. I've been through seen Hurricane Maria. I was out there with Standing Rock. I mean, I've been through it. And for those who know, I've been arrested and beaten, fighting for justice. And so I can tell you though, that at the end of the day, if you have that faith, that I'm telling you, God will never leave you nor forsake you. You just gotta hold on to that, particularly if you don't have no other help around you.
Man, that's serious right there. I started to bring the band in. Start to bring the band in for you, Rev. You know, because
That's all right.
You know, like I have no problem. I mean, like I can bring the band in. You know, because there's a time like this, brothers and sisters, we must realize that Reverend Yearwood is absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
It is not a Palm Sunday message. It's an every single day message. Any day that ends in AY.
Now. I know that's right.
We all have to do our part. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
We got to put ourselves in a position to be vulnerable.
That's right.
We have to ask for the help that we
need.
Come
on now.
We need to be on our neighbor's beck and call.
Come on.
With a good 6 foot distance.
I'm 6.5. Just be safe.
6.5. Oh my God. I love it. I love it. Yes, indeed. Oh, bring it down. Bring it down. Bring it down.
Oh man, that's great.
Let me tell you something, brother. There's one thing I can do. I will hit you with the sound effects.
I love it.
Seriously though, what do you have going on right now? What are you working on specifically in this time? Now that you have, you know, a few limitations from a physical standpoint, what are you doing?
Well, Hip Hop Caucus is actually, this is Earth Month. And so, you know, we've been real big on the issue of how we can fight both poverty and pollution at the same time. And so we've been at the forefront of that. The Hip Hop Caucus is an amazing team. Again, if you don't know about it, go to hiphopcaucus.org, and follow on all the social media stuff. But one of the things there that, you know, as this Earth Month comes about, this actually is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day is on April 22nd. And so we're kind of preparing because, you know, we know that right around the corner, unfortunately, come June is hurricane season. And so, man, we're not going to have much time to really just move up as we go from this to that. And then we know we got wildfire season in California right around the corner. So we got to be prepared for all those natural disasters that are right around. So we're getting prepared for that to educate our communities about those things and doing a great job educating. Also, April is also Poetry Month. And so, you know, yesterday was Maya Angelou's birthday, actually April 4th. So in that aspect. So, you know, we want to celebrate all of our poets who've been there, just like Care More to my son. There's a whole list of them who we know been getting engaged and using their skills this month. And we're going to be sharing a lot of their gifts and talents throughout. They're using their piece. And I think the one thing that we're trying to do is that we are transitioning. You know, Hip Hop Caucus now has amazing leadership from like Jasmine and Liz out in LA, and Mark and TC on the East Coast, and many other people around the country. Yes. Just giving them a quick shout out. But, you know, we're doing that. And then finally, I think in the spirit, myself and Anthony Smith, you know, actually host a podcast called The Coolest Show on Climate Change. And so, you know, we're going to be, if you haven't seen that, go to think100.info. We're going to really be getting that message out there. You know, one of the things about this, you know, with the environmental movement, you know, I got involved always after Katrina, but we kind of saw that, man, it was mostly, you know, white people, you know, who was kind of talking about the nature, you know, kind of Birkenstock, right? So I'm like, well, no, we know Black folk about nature more than anybody.
Facts. We are the first ones to harness nature.
We the first ones to harness. We outside regardless. So I mean, so I just was like, between us and the indigenous community, you know, we need to be engaged. Right. We've been pushing that message and doing that. So it's been exciting. So really around this Earth Month is gonna be really important to just spread the message about how important it is to, you know, fight both poverty and pollution at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So what are your hopes in this time? Like what are you hoping for? What gives you encouragement? What, you know, what's putting a smile on your face? What are you telling the people that, you know, like, because, you know, I feel like, you know, for our generation, you know, it's like you, Rev Run, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's some folks that just, yeah, I ain't trying to be messy. I'm just factual.
No, it's real.
You know, there's some people that like, okay, like my whole thing, and this is like, I'm trying to put it in a way that makes sense. I would rather trust somebody who is running an anti-drug campaign, who's actually had some weed or had a crack addicted uncle. I don't trust I don't trust perfect preachers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
And I'm not a perfect preacher. You ain't a perfect preacher.
Nope.
Rev Run ain't, but there's some folks out, well, like I ain't nobody got time for that. I am flawed. I am loud. I am bold. I will flip over your tables. And I come in that Jesus spirit.
Yeah,
I'm the table flipper.
Nah, I feel you.
So what are, what are, your hopes for the people who, rely on you and others of your ilk, for encouragement and, for guidance, how are you reaching out to them? What are you saying to them? What has been your overarching message?
Yeah, well, let me just piggyback on what you just said. I think it's actually very important. Being within the hip hop community and being a minister was very challenging. I mean, people don't know that. And when I was in the Air Force, I was a chaplain. Mm-hmm. Got my good Master of Divinity degree from Howard University, giving Howard the shout out there.
HU.
And so I think that, and came up through my uncle and aunts, my uncle's a bishop in the Kojic church. And so I came up in a tradition that was there. And so I wanted to say, kind of piggyback what you just said, because when I was going to churches and they would introduce me as the president of the Hip Hop Caucus, I would see many people kind of put their little church finger up and walk out of the church and be like, "Oh, I'm not here for this Sunday. I'm not here for this. I want the other." And that would affect me, because I would be like, man, if they did switch my my bio, they'd be like, Master Divinity from this and this and that, and then it would stay. But that helped me years ago to realize that you have that, one, God is the God of the oppressed, and two, you have to take away and strip yourself from all of those things that somehow think you bigger than people. And that helped me out tremendously, because no matter what I was coming with, people who had their angst or thoughts about hip hop, they put that on me, and that actually helped me, because then that let me just be, well, I'm still going to be who I am as far as a reverend, but that's going to be, I now know that you're now in a very superficial place. And I need to go where the people are. And that really helped me to really see Jesus even more clearly, because I really see how connected he was with the plight of the people, by the women by the well, and by the hunger, those who were feeding the 5,000 and overturning the money tables and all those things. And even on the cross with the thief next to him. So I just think that, that helped me to see a different way. And I'm very much, listen, I know how important, as a historian kind of myself, I know how important the Black church is. I'm not putting that.
You're not vilifying the Black church, but you're telling the truth. There's certain things, that are, here's the irony for me, theologically speaking, and I know you'll catch what I'm about to say, right? When Jesus came, because John 3:16 spells it out, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. So when Jesus, God made flesh, came into this world, there were these folks called Pharisees who were keeping up with all of these magical commandments, including the remixed 600 and some odd that Moses added to the situation. And they were so busy forcing the law on people and tradition and that they were losing the soul of the people and were so far removed from the needs of the people. But, let's just be historic about it. Let's not even be spiritual about it. Historically speaking, it's determined somewhere, depending on which biblical scholar you want to believe this week, that when Mary was given the gift of being pregnant, divinely with Jesus, she was in her teens. One, she was engaged to Joseph and not yet married, so that would make her an unwed teenage mother. Okay, one. Two, if Jesus was, perfect, and we theologically believe that Jesus was perfect because he's God made flesh. Not only did he walk on water and heal palsy children, but he got arrested, tried, convicted by the state, put up for parole, denied parole, executed by the state. But you have an issue with a criminal coming in your church. What happened to Judge Not?
Facts. No, all that is facts.
So I'm like, there's nothing wrong. And even Paul, who wrote 75% of the New Testament, says everybody likes to talk about Judge Not, but he was talking about people who were not in the body of Christ. Those who are in the body of Christ have every right to be examined by the body of Christ. So you're not denigrating the Black church by saying sometimes folks see hip hop and they become unwelcoming. Look what they did to Kirk Franklin. Look what they did to Erica Campbell. Look at what they do to Lecrae.
All that is fact. All that is facts. And but let me just follow that up with this. I think the reason why it's important, and what you're kind of talking about, this is actually what's tough. There are people who have been going to church and churches every single day almost for the past how many years, and now they are realizing that the church is not either there for them or they don't have the kind of faith. In other words, it would be like me going to the gym every single day and working out and doing the routine. And then when a real fight came up, I literally couldn't even get into the ring because I didn't have any muscles. And so I am saying that the reality is that, and then I look at the other guy who was chopping wood and he didn't have a gym and he was out there doing something that maybe didn't look orthodox and chopping wood and carrying around coal, hay bales and whatever. And he was strong enough to do anything. And so I think that what we're saying here is that this is a moment in a crisis where your faith should be strong. And if you find yourself in a position where your faith is not strong, you have to really look back at, were you going through the right exercises to make your faith strong when a crisis hit? If you're not prepared, then you're in a bad situation. And that kind of leads into your question of what makes me encouraged. What makes me encouraged now is, I think the thing for me, and the number of things, so many different things, is to see people come together. Many of us can remember what we did on February 29th of this year. That was just about 2 months ago. And I know that I say that day because that's a leap year and it's the extra day for Black History Month. So I bring that. Many of us can remember that where we are now, 2 months later, is totally different than where we were on February 29th of this year. And look how much has changed. But what is amazing to me is how we as a people from all over this world can work together. Like the aspect of physical distancing. I mean, some of us not following it, some people not. I mean, that's unfortunate. But most of us around the globe have been trying to literally, people have lost their businesses, lost their careers for the standpoint of fighting for other people. That's encouraging. I mean, that's at its core, that means humanity has that's like, man, I have to give up my livelihood, my way of living so that people can live. In some cases, it was kind of forced upon you. I mean, you probably had no choice in some cases. Right. But in some cases, many people, who have restaurants or, stores and businesses know that they may not come back after this. But what they did was heroic. Seeing, truly for now, a different kind of first responders, the folks in the grocery stores who are literally, and the folks at the hospitals and the doctors and nurses who are literally putting their lives on the line. I mean, literally going into a place where that you may catch this disease and so you can serve the people. I mean, they are historic. I mean, we used to, I know for me, I was in the military. They say, I would come up and say, you was in the Air Force. And I said, yes. Oh, and they would say, thank you for your service. And I'm like, hey, thanks. But I think that we got to use that in the future for the doctors and nurses,
facts,
and for the folks in the stores and who are doing the stores, keeping us with food and that kind of stuff. I mean, we gotta be like, thank you for your service. Because I know right now when I go to the store, I mean, I'm wrapped up with goggles and mask on and scarves and gloves and a whole 9 yards. And they ain't there serving me, making sure I got food. So, or a hospital. So I just think that, or people, I mean, we have folks who are literally putting their lives, police officers or firefighters who are out there literally have to respond to situations. So I think that we got to really be mindful. That encourages me. And I think the one thing that has encouraged me more than ever is the love that I've seen from our people. You know, what you're doing here with CoronaCon and what other folks are doing in very similar fashion, trying to just connect us. You know, thank you for just bringing these kind of platforms together so that we can just be together and figure out innovative ways. I mean, even this right here, the fact that you took something that has become kind of synonymous with what, you know, from Comic-Con to this con to that kind of con, and you took something that was literally bad and connected and made it good. That to me makes me hopeful that we can take, you know, it's kind of what the Bible says, you know, what was meant for evil, you know, God will turn to good. So I just want to thank you for creating these kind of platforms and these discussions like CoronaCon for us to come together.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for the Hip Hop Caucus. I want to thank you for Vote or Die. I want to thank you for your work on climate change. Now, can we get some remixed recycle bins? Like,
listen, I'm you know, bro. I tell you, you know, it's crazy. You know, it's funny. We gotta, you know, I tell you, we gotta recycle, we gotta reuse, come on, y'all. We gotta figure out some ways because the blue ones ain't, you know, yeah, we gotta figure that one out.
I'm just saying they gotta be sexy, something like an insert, you know, some bag, anything to make that thing pop. But real quick, because we gotta get ready to roll. I want to give you the last word, and I want people to know how to reach out to you and how to get all these phenomenal resources that you and your amazing team provide. And I want to thank you so much again, Reverend Yearwood, for being here and just doing the work, man, really being the example, man. You know, it's people like you that allow people like me to feel like we can serve, because we're not perfect, and we see you making it happen, and you go out here, you see a problem, and you automatically start to work to find the solution and put people in place. Like that is an example of what Christ did. He went out and got fishermen, he went out and got tax collectors, he went out and got folks and brought people together in order to create movement. And I'm grateful for that. So I'll give you the last word and how people can contact you.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, it really is. The Hip Hop Caucus is an amazing organization. They can reach them at hiphopcaucus.org. All the social media is at Hip Hop Caucus throughout Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Me, I'm at Rev Yearwood on Twitter and Instagram, so you can hit me there. But I really just wanted to say this to the people. You know, hold on. I know for some of you who I know some family and friends who've gotten COVID-19, and it's bad. Yeah. But hold on, stay strong, and you will make it. Just know that you will make it, that this too shall pass, and that you're gonna come out on stronger on the other side. And for those of us who are the activists or the artists or the artivists, or those who are just the freedom fighters, listen, all power to the people. Never forget that, all power to the people. Hold on. And we say hip hop, can't stop, won't stop.
My man. Thank you, Reverend Yearwood. I appreciate you so much for being here. I will definitely be in touch. Yes, sir. My man. Thank you, sir. So happy to have Reverend Yearwood here. I think it was absolutely amazing to have him here. Now, right, in just a few minutes, right, we're going to have one of the best women's panels, you know, from all aspects of entrepreneurship. I'm talking about authors, I'm talking about coaches, I'm talking about people who make natural products, I'm talking about branding and marketing experts. So listen, did you hear what Reverend Yearwood said? If you want to get something done, you get some Black women. Well, I got a gang of Black women and a few others to really come in and inspire and empower you. And I am so excited and I am so thrilled. And so if you have not registered yet, and you're watching this on another platform, go to www.coronacon.live, or you can go to businessbully.tv and watch this entire thing streaming live and on demand, wherever you have an internet connection. It is literally that easy. And like, I'm so excited, man, to see this panel that's about to come on here. So if you're watching on Business Bully TV, we want to take a quick commercial break and then come back with the women's panel. If you are watching online, be that Facebook or in the CoronaCon group on Facebook or on Periscope, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we will be back with that next panel right here. Use the hashtag CoronaCon 2020. You can ask your questions. You can get involved. You'll be able to get resources when you register. Go to www.coronacon.live or go to businessbully.tv, and we will see you in a moment.